In the previous lesson, we designed a simple UI using a column, a box, and a couple of other composables. In this lesson, we are going to talk about another layout in Jetpack Compose that allows us to have more control over how we arrange our UI items or components on the screen. So this layout is called row, and I'm going to use a row to put these two buttons that I have, increase and decrease, in a row from left to right on the screen. So let's do that by selecting the two buttons that I have and then pressing Alt and Enter and select Surround with Widget. Press Enter and then Surround with Row. I put them inside a row. I did it using Android Studio, but you can enter it manually by typing row and then putting the two buttons as the content of your row. Now if I refresh my UI, you will see the effect of using row. There we go. Now our two buttons are placed in one row. What if we want to place our buttons in a way that they take half of the screen width each? To do that, we can use some responsive design capabilities that are available in Jetpack Compose. For that, we have the weight modifier for row and column. Let's use it for row first. So to use this feature, I'm going to give each of my buttons a weight of 1. I add a modifier after the padding modifier for the first button, weight. For its value, I give 1F because it has to be float. And then I do the same for the second button, weight 1F, and then refresh the layout. There we go. Now you can see that each of the buttons are taking up half of the screen width. We can do the same for our column because column also supports using the weight modifier. For this purpose, I go to my column and first I give it a modifier to fill in the whole height that is available on the screen to my column. I'm gonna give the whole height that is available to the column. So I type fill max height, and then from the space available to the column, I'm gonna give two weights to this box and one weight to my text field. So I add to the chain of modifiers for the box a new weight modifier and specify 2F as the value. And for the text field, let's make it 3 in fact for the box. And for the text field, I add to the chain of modifiers for outlined text field weight 1F, and also for the button I can do the same. It already has a weight, but I can do that for the row because row is now member of our column. So I add a modifier for the row, modifier.weight, and for its value I type 1F. Refresh the UI and wait for the new preview. There we go. It's not that beautiful. In fact, we might have wanted to remove the weight, the one weight from our text field because it's too high. So I remove from the text field its weight and refresh the UI again. You can play around with these capabilities in order to achieve your desired UI appearance. Another thing that might help us design better UIs is Spacer. Spacer allows us to have space between the items that we have in columns and rows. For example, inside my column, I can add a spacer between the box that I have here and the text field that follows it. So I add a spacer with a modifier to change its behavior and define its height. Modifier dot height, and for its height I enter, for example, 20 depth, and I add the same spacer after this text field between the text field and the following buttons. So I copy this line and paste it after outline text field. I do a refresh. There we go. As you can see, now we have some space between the box and the text field and the text field and its following row. And that is achieved using a spacer. So in this video, we talked about row, how row allows us to have better control on the layout and arrangement of the items that we design using Jetpack Compose. In addition to column, that also helps us to arrange items in a vertical way on the screen. We also talked about responsive design using weights inside columns and rows, as well as spacer that allows us to add some space between different UI components in Jetpack Compose.